Ethan immediately realized something had gone wrong at home. A pungent odor of something sweet hit his nose, causing him to take a step back and sneeze. As soon as the sneezing subsided, Ethan turned his head and noticed something unusual on the coat rack. That coat definitely hadn't been there this morning. He turned and looked closely at the strange piece of clothing that his wife would not wear even under pain of death. At that moment, a thin, painfully familiar voice came from the kitchen, speaking in an unpleasant tone. It was then that Ethan finally pulled himself together. Judging by the pungent smell of perfume, which was probably poured in excess, and the strange coat, he realized something was wrong. But Ethan decided not to comment on anything. "Ethan, is that you?" came the excited voice of his wife, Emily, just as he was ready to back out. "We have a surprise. Mom's visiting," added Emily cheerfully, and Ethan muttered to himself, receiving a not-so-subtle poke in the back from her. As much as he wanted to avoid it, the moment to meet his mother-in-law had arrived. He forced his way into the kitchen, trying to put a semblance of a smile on his face. "Hello, Margot. Why didn't you give us a heads up about your visit?" "We could have moved out in time," Ethan said, studiously ignoring his wife's warning look. Margot nodded regally in greeting and immediately looked at Ethan as if she were seeing him for the first time. In a dramatic whisper, Margot announced, "Emily, really, I can feel holes in my aura." "Aren't you ashamed?" She turned to Ethan. "Can't you at least influence her? She doesn't fix her socks, let alone her aura. And I walk around looking like a beggar." Ethan shook his head, pretending to threaten his wife with a finger and ignoring the playful fist she showed him in response. "Don't joke around like that, Ethan. This is serious," Margot scolded, raising her tone. "Your life energy is being sucked out through those orifices." Not wanting to engage further, Ethan quickly removed himself from the kitchen. After changing into more comfortable clothes, he settled down on the couch to wait for dinner. But Margot wasn't finished yet. Soon she entered the room, followed by Emily. "No, there's definitely something wrong here," Margot said, bringing her hands to her temples. "No wonder you're sick all the time." Ethan, who hadn't been sick in over 2 years, chuckled softly. "Emily tells me otherwise. Everything seems to work just fine here," he replied, amused. Seeing that her words had no effect on him, Margot sprang into action, gesturing for things to be moved. Ethan, who was watching with restrained interest, was not going to get up from the couch. And when Margot finally seemed tired, Ethan added slyly, "I really shouldn't be lifting weights right now. My aura could completely disintegrate." "And then what?" After that, Margot, clearly annoyed, sent Emily off to visit a friend for a couple hours. "I'll take care of your husband myself," she said, her voice taking on a strange tinge. "I'll drive the demons out of him." As soon as Emily left, Margot quickly threw off her clothes, wearing only a delicate white blouse, as if the room had suddenly become unbearably hot. She climbed onto the bed next to Ethan, mumbling strange words and waving some kind of broom in a language he didn't understand. She even let out some kind of smoke above him. For a moment, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed Margot tightly and, perhaps stunned by the smoke, hugged her. Margot froze, paralyzed, looking at him in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. But when Ethan kissed her cheek, she realized everything, and she melted into his strong embrace. From that moment on, Margot snuggled closer to her son-in-law. It had been a long time since Margot had exorcised such a demon, and the ritual went on for over an hour. When it was finally over, she ran off to shower, leaving Ethan wondering what would happen next.